Tonight on the Daily Debrief, checks and computer searches.
A folder called Merit.
In the case of a California man accused of murdering his business partner's entire family. Also, sex accusations involving an R&B superstar and claims by a famous attorney that there's a tape. And Bill Cosby is speaking from behind bars. The nation's top criminal cases are on the Daily Debrief for Thursday, February 14th. Good evening, everybody. On behalf of Mike Koribanics and myself, welcome to the Debrief. Testimony about suspicious computer searches and strange business checks to report tonight in the McStay family murder case. First, though, let's get you caught up to speed on what's happened thus far in this complex case.
How does this family of four disappear off the face of the earth?
California small business owner Joseph McStay and his entire family disappeared February 4th, 2010. Their car was abandoned near the border. Authorities believed this video showed them fleeing to Mexico, presumably to avoid business debts. Case closed? Not even close. Fast forward more than 3 years to November 2013. A biker discovered the skull of one of the family members in the Mojave Desert.
I was traveling on a dirt road. I stumbled across the remains.
All four were buried nearby. Authorities arrested Chase Merritt, a business associate to Joseph McStay. They believe he killed for money.
The why boils down to greed, and greed's child, fraud.
The defense says Merritt didn't do it.
Charles Merritt, which everybody calls Chase, that was his best friend.
The state has presented a $4,000 check from McStay to Merritt, made out the day McStay disappeared. But Merritt never cashed it. He told police there was always money and merchandise moving back and forth between him and McStay, since they frequently did business together.
Someone calls you that indicates that they are Joseph McStay.
Someone with at least some access to McStay's business accounts tried to change his QuickBooks software right after McStay vanished. The state also presented cell phone searches for information about the family's disappearance, made by Merritt, shortly after the family's bodies turned up in the desert. In those graves, a hammer prosecutors believe was the murder weapon. Also, shards of a bath mat. Authorities think it matches linens missing from the family's home.
They were beaten about the head and face until they died.
The family's home, prosecutors say, is the crime scene, but evidence is scant.
You will look for things of signs of violence, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't see any of them?
No, sir.
One officer who took photographs there realized back at the lab that she may have found blood on the family's table, but she didn't see it when she was in the house, and it was cleaned before anyone knew it was there.
When I saw it, I was horrified.
Why?
Because I thought it was something I missed.
The defense is pointing to an alternate suspect who also did business with the family, and to unknown DNA found in the family's graves. Another piece of evidence in this case that the defense contested was an enhanced image from a neighbor's security camera. The original dark and fuzzy recordings occurred at night. Prosecutors say that image shows the defendant's truck in the McStay family neighborhood just after the family vanished. Traffic there is rare because the family lived on a dead-end street. Testimony this week involved the McStay family's computers. Someone was searching for something on one of those computers. Vanished. One of the sites opened was MSN.com, which may have been the computer's homepage. But there were also searches to GoMexico.com and other similar sites in the days leading up to the disappearance.
The inquiry is about travel information for kids and documents that are required for kids to go to Mexico.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll show you 848C. Same thing. That would be a site that would be used for information on general entry requirements into Mexico.
Yes.
And 848D, that would also be from about.com, and that would be a site that would be a site where somebody's asking for information about children travel and children requirements to get into Mexico.
Yes, it does.
And again, 848E, about.com site, general passport information, whether one is needed or not, for Mexico. Is that what that site reflects?
Yes.
Those weren't the only searches. This one is perhaps even more strange.
These were some of the sites that you testified to on Thursday. And I think on direct examination, you named some of those sites. Is that correct? Am I using the right term, site? Because remember, the result, what we got when the actual name was punched in was search results, correct? You remember that?
I remember the conversation, yes.
Okay. So if we take a look
on the searches we're looking at here,
yes,
they all appear to have been searches conducted through Google.com.
Okay. So a name is put in, a search term, I would say, correct?
Yes.
All right. And I was kind of questioning you, and admittedly clumsily, questioning you as to what the user's actually doing when they're sitting at the computer. Because you can type out and spell words, or you can maybe go and click on a previous search, and it'll take you to the same place, correct?
Correct.
All right. Do you know how these searches were done?
No, I would not be able to
Okay.
make that determination.
Okay. And then I asked you whether or not, when the search was done, whether an actual, and I know I used the wrong term on this for sure, a website was accessed. And you indicated that what was accessed was search results, meaning a number of items actually came up on the computer screen, correct?
Yes.
And I believe there was about maybe 5 or 6 different terms that were searched for, correct?
Correct.
And that entire search process, or that entire 5 or 6 terms that were searched for, the entire time as we looked at it was about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Was there any other activity on February 8th on the e-machine that you're aware of? Meaning, when I say activity, user activity, somebody punching keys, sitting at the keyboard.
Not that I'm aware of.
So, someone was searching for the term search results. That same investigator said the searches were not automatic. Someone was sitting at the keyboard.
Yeah, pages 2, 3, and 4, I am seeing Google searches that were conducted on February 8th.
And if I could just, that would be Exhibit 827. So back to my question, would that be the report that would tell us what time that internet activity would have started on February 8th?
Yes.
Okay. So would you mind, and you don't remember what that was, correct, off the top of your head?
Not off the top.
Would it refresh your memory to look at that document to see?
All of these records contain a last access time between 2:06 a.m. and 2:07 a.m.
Okay. So for about would it be fair to say then on February 8th, somebody is actually at that computer doing some internet activity that you described on Thursday, correct?
Yes.
And when I say somebody sitting at the computer, I mean there's internet activity that is sometimes that the person doesn't have to do anything on the computer, just does it on its own. Virus scans, things of that nature, correct? The system will do it on its own.
Yes.
This is different because this is actually somebody sitting at the keyboard punching keys, correct?
These records would suggest that, yes.
Okay.
The defense noted that some of the documents on the computer involve the defendant, Chase Merritt. Again, documents, not internet searches. However, the police didn't give them a good look.
called Merit /ED with the folder name indicating the T number and investigator from our lab that the files were saved in.
Well, instead of
device 4.
This is a document that was identified by your team. Is that correct?
This report was not generated by me. If this document was located in that folder and came from
Speculating at this point.
Go ahead.
and came from the exact copy of what was provided to this examiner,
Would it be safe to say, you can turn the page, it's okay. Would it be safe to say that this is a document that you've never seen before?
yes,
And would this also say that this is a document that was on the e-machine desktop computer?
the source path would suggest that. However, there's not enough information for me to be able to tell where this came from.
And this is, again, a document that has a name of Dan Payoff.
Yes, it was an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. So even though, let's say, for example, you didn't concentrate on other stuff, just mainly internet activity, and this is not internet activity, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. But other folks could go into the computer and maybe concentrate on documents or other stuff and come up with some files that were not in your report, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does that have a file creation date? Would you be able to know when that document was created?
This report indicates the file was created on.
Hearsay of explanation.
This report suggests the file was created on February 19th, 2009 at 6:22 p.m.
One folder for Merit, a document called Dan Payoff on that computer. This testimony is slow, it's difficult to listen to, but it's important. Is Dan Payoff a reference to Dan Kavanaugh, the person the defense says should be the real suspect? What's going on here? Criminal defense attorney Mike Koribanics is with me tonight on the debrief to make sense of this all. So, Mike, it's been a while since I've seen you. What's going on here? Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that the police should be taking a look at these devices holistically, not just looking at the internet searches, but also looking at the documents on them. And the defense had to keep forcing that detective to say, what about this document? What about that document?
I don't get this witness because he opens up more questions to me than he answers. Another question is, you know, that somebody had to be sitting at the keyboard. There was a period of time after their disappearance that, how do you know this wasn't one of the alleged victims who was still trying to plot some sort of disappearance? If you group it with the border video of them leaving and nobody seeing where they went to. And I just think I don't really get this kind of testimony. I don't think it's as effective as the prosecution thinks.
I mean, it opens up a can of worms, as you say, because, look, I mean, they tried to say, yeah, the family fled to Mexico. This might be them crossing the border. Their SUV was ditched near the border. They disappeared, and that's where this case was closed for many years until the bodies turned up in the desert. But do these searches of GoMexico.com before they disappeared, does that lend credence to the theory that, well, gee, maybe both theories are right? Maybe they went to Mexico, maybe they came back, something happened in there, and it didn't involve this defendant.
That's where I think I would go as a defense in here. I think you make a great point with that is, yeah, maybe they went to Mexico, they decided we need to do some other things, left the family there, came back, and whatever mishappened might have happened in Mexico.
And Mike, we'll check in again with you in a couple of minutes. Still ahead tonight here on the Daily Debrief. Bill Cosby is speaking from behind bars after a recent sex crimes conviction. You remember that. Here's the problem. What he's saying now is not helping himself legally. Also, coming up on the debrief, more testimony about finances in the McStay family murder case. The evidence the prosecution says points to a motive of greed. That's when we return after this break. Welcome back to the debrief, ladies and gentlemen. Time to check in first with Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Ross with what's coming up tonight on Brian Ross Investigates. Brian, good to see you.
Well, good to see you, Aaron. Tonight we're going to focus on the growing controversy around OxyContin, the family that owns the company that makes it, the Sacklers. They've been great patrons of the arts, and now there's a movement for the museums that have taken all their money to take the names off the museum and return the money.
Tonight at the Guggenheim Museum in New York City, tourists and art lovers taking advantage of the free admission hours, when suddenly a blizzard of white leaflets and banners denouncing the Sacklers. The protest all led by a group called PAIN, Prescription Addiction Intervention Now, a group founded by famed photographer Nan Goldman, who joined the so-called die-in on the floor of the Guggenheim. All part of an effort to demand this museum and others like it around the world give back the millions of dollars the Sacklers have donated to them.
There was no comment to us from the Sackler family despite our repeated request. Probably of more concern to them is an investigation now underway by the Attorney General in Massachusetts, who has obtained a blizzard of her own of emails and internal company documents that she says point to the complicity of individual members of the Sackler family in pushing the drug OxyContin, which is said to be responsible for tens of thousands of deaths, Aaron.
Brian Ross Investigates coming up tonight, and again tomorrow. Brian, I'll be sure to be watching.
Thank you.
Explosive accusations today against R&B artist R. Kelly, and they're coming from none other than attorney Michael Avenatti. Here is a look at today's developments.
Let me get you that running.
The R&B singer, who has long denied claims he slept with underage women while settling their lawsuits against him out of court, may soon be in deeper trouble with the law.
It's the remix to Ignition, hot and fresh out the kitchen.
Attorney Michael Avenatti claims to have a tape showing R&B superstar R. Kelly having sex with an underage girl. Also, the New Yorker is reporting that an indictment is pending and R. Kelly could soon be arrested. That report cites unnamed law enforcement sources in Chicago. The author of the report has reported on R. Kelly for 17 years. Avenatti says he's representing a whistleblower who claims to have worked for R. Kelly for decades. The whistleblower contacted Avenatti, and Avenatti turned over the alleged sex tape he provided to prosecutors in Chicago. CNN says it viewed the tape, which is 45 minutes long, and calls it clear and explicit. CNN could not independently verify the girl's age, but in the video, the girl refers to herself as 14. R. Kelly was arrested for child pornography in 2002, but was acquitted in 2008. He has spent millions settling civil suits from women claiming he had sex with them while they were underage, while himself denying he did anything wrong. In other news tonight, Bill Cosby speaking out from behind bars, saying he will, quote, never have remorse for the sexual encounter which landed him behind bars. In a statement dictated to his wife, Cosby calls the encounter consensual. He says he settled a civil suit out of court and was allegedly declared not guilty in 2005, but, in his words, a low-life district attorney and a corrupt judge sent him to prison to fuel their, quote, political aspirations. Cosby compared his imprisonment to that of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and others. The statement from Cosby will likely backfire. Cosby needs to show remorse in order to secure early release under Pennsylvania law. Back to testimony now in the McStay family murder case. Testimony late yesterday included a series of checks written from the victim's accounts to defendant Chase Merritt's accounts. When were they written? In the days before and the days after the family is believed to have vanished.
Can you tell us when this check was created?
At 11:29 a.m.
And when was that check deleted?
11:37 a.m.
Who is that check made out to?
This was made out to Charles Merritt.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 429. Is this audit history reflected on the activity log that you have?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us when this check was created?
At 7:59 p.m.
On what date?
on February 4th, 2010.
And was this check also deleted?
Yes, it was.
What time was that?
8:05 p.m.
Who is that check made out to?
Charles Merritt.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 430 for identification purposes. Can you tell us if this is also reflected, if this audit history is also reflected on the activity log that you have?
Yes, it is.
And is this for a check that was created on February 5th of 2010 at 12:06 p.m.?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us when this check was deleted?
12:38 p.m. on February 5th.
And who is this check made out to?
Charles Merritt.
Those were just some of the checks prosecutors pointed out last night. Yet it is unclear whether those checks were actually printed and whether they were actually cashed. Let's turn once again tonight to criminal defense attorney Mike Koribanics. Mike, a lot of questions about money in this case. It's a lot to follow, and a lot of the witnesses don't have all of the answers when they're up there on the stand.
This case, I still don't get, and I don't know where it's going. And the biggest problem I see with this case, Aaron, is the money, but the amount of money for businessmen is minimal. And I don't think it would drive somebody to kill a whole family. I think they're really going with a weak motive here.
Yeah, again, we've got the McStay family. Joseph McStay, okay, he's the business owner. He's doing these. And those things must have been rather pricey because he was running a whole company doing them. So $40,000 here, $5,000 here, $100 here, $100 here. Again, constant money back and forth between these two because they did business regularly. It might seem a lot of money for a personal account, but for a business account, I think you're right, not necessarily.
I don't get it, and I think they're going to lose the jury with this, and I think they should streamline this case a little bit if they want to get anywhere with it.
Everyone has been saying that. We are hearing, though, from people in the courtroom that the jurors really are paying close attention, taking a lot of notes. They probably have to because this is just so much to digest. Mike Koribanics, I appreciate your insight again tonight here on The Debrief.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for watching The Debrief tonight. I'll see you right back here on The Debrief at either 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock on the Law and Crime Network. Again, our schedule depends on the schedule in the McStay family murder case. For some of you, that coverage continues in a moment. For others who are just watching The Debrief, have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.